Hi, Sydney.
Hi.
Um, today we're going to talk a little bit about Engineering 11. You are a fantastic student, working hard in Engineering 11 winter 2022, right?
Yes, thank you.
Um, yeah, definitely. I was really impressed with your work. So before we begin, maybe you can just tell some folks about what class we're in together, when we're working together, and then why you're in this class, just so they have some context of kind of your history here.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm a second year biology major at Foothill, and I'm taking Engineering 11 with Jeff. And we meet for like about 5 hours on Monday, and then for class, and then about like 3 hours on Wednesday. And I'm taking this course because it's a requirement for my tag application for UCI. I'm applying to be a biomedical engineer pre-med for that program. And yeah, so I just entered or applied, not applied, enrolled in this course solely based out of that requirement. And I was just thinking, I was really scared to be honest, because I had never taken a coding class, never taken an engineer class. I'm very much like pre-med, so it was very scary for me coming in. Um, yeah, it's been really eye-opening so far.
Yeah, we'll talk through that. I want to say that when UTI gets you, they're going to be very lucky. And I have no doubt that you're going to make that school better. If I could buy stock the day you enter, and then I'd sell it the day you leave. So
Thank
go.
you.
Yeah, you're going to do it. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about, we're going to get to the place where you share some of the work that you've been doing to guide my future students. I think you do fantastic work and you've really set up systems that I think will be useful. But my class is very non-standard, and I think your experiences are really important. And I want to give you a chance to kind of talk through your experiences in the class and imagine that you were able to give yourself advice 9 weeks ago, just to
Yeah.
kind of like get your feet in this crazy experience that you're having and kind of talk through some of that. So maybe just what were the contexts that you've worked in this class and yeah, just go for it. Tell
Okay.
us.
Yeah. So going into the class, as I said, I was really scared. My first coding class. And I guess the first day it was even more scary because it was like, this is completely new structure. It's like not graded. I determine my own grade. Um, and it was scary for me, not because of the grade. I was glad about like being ungraded and being able to decide my own grade. But he said that you kind of structure what you want to accomplish for the quarter. And that really scared me because that meant there was no like schedule that I could follow. I had to create that schedule for myself. And having never taken a coding class, I didn't know how much time it would take and like how hard it was going to be. And since it was a requirement for me and I wasn't particularly interested in MATLAB, I really didn't want to do it. I just really wanted to schedule like, okay, I'm going to complete one lesson, one video, one playlist for the whole quarter. That's like my goal. Obviously, I didn't do that. We got into the learning groups, and that those were really nice, not just because you could collaborate with other students, but because you really got to know your learning partners. Um, and it's kind of a fun fact, but like one of my learning partners, I learned she lives like 2, 3 minutes away from me. So we ended up carpooling to school some days. Um, yeah, it was really cool.
My heart feel really warm right now. This is
Yeah.
exactly what I hope for, that you all make connections and you're able to support each other and that your life gets easier because you're going through it together.
Yeah. And I think even just being with a group, everyone has their own, we weren't all the same major, so it was cool to see what everyone prioritized. Like the Lana project, I knew it didn't really apply to what I wanted to study in the future, so I didn't really place emphasis on that. I focused more on completing MATLAB and getting that foundational knowledge on MATLAB and just completing that first set of playlists, like unit one. But the like learning partners that my partner and I partnered up with, they very much like delved into the Lana project. And I know I was super lost during some of our meetings, and it was yeah, me and my other partner Jazzy would just be like, I have no idea what's going on right now, but it was okay. It was all good.
You
Yeah, and
survived, right? No one died.
yes, no one died, and I'm still here. and everything's okay. And I just know maybe a little bit more about circuits than I ever thought I would.
I
Which is
do want
really
to
good.
just set something straight for the record, just because this may not be watched only by students. I did provide a calendar for you of my suggested timelines. And so
Mhm.
when you said like, oh, there's no calendar, et cetera, but we did have that ready. But I think what you
That's
were
true.
saying was that I invited you to create your own calendar, in which
Mhm.
case you could completely ignore mine. And that process was probably emotionally overwhelming, right?
Yes, that was scary. You did provide, and I did look at that, and I was like, okay. So I did look at it, and that was helpful because I knew, okay, I should be focused on like the videos, the playlists, like those are like what I need to like complete. Um, and so it was helpful just seeing that. But again, you gave me the freedom, gave all of us the freedom to determine exactly how many of those videos we want to watch and like when they were supposed to be like quote unquote due. Um, and I think that I struggled, if I were to give myself advice, I would say to figure out the calendar as soon as you can and get started on it. Because I think at the beginning I was very confused what was due and if anything was due. And there's not really strict deadlines in this class. It's more like you set your own pace, but you do need to complete these things, especially if you want to learn. Um, and I don't think that really clicked for me until like end of week 2. And that's already like too much time because the playlists are a lot of work, especially for if you're new to coding. It takes me like about at least double the amount of time it says the videos are.
So
Um,
the videos ran for 2 hours,
mhm,
minimum 4 hours. And I think
yes.
one thing I remember you saying, which made me feel like, okay, she's getting it. You're like, I spent 6.5 hours on a 1.5 hour playlist. And I was like, yes, Sydney, you're getting
Yeah, that
it.
was, yeah, the script file playlist, because I guess we'll talk about the way I take notes later, but originally I was just taking handwritten notes, but when I learned what script files were, I kind of got into it, and it was kind of a process to learn how to do that, to take notes and also watch the videos learning about script files. So that playlist took me like 6 hours.
Can you
Um,
actually highlight that? I think this is a fantastic time to do that. I'd love it if
yeah,
maybe you
yeah.
could share your screen. I'm hoping future generations of students will be as inspired by you as I have been. I think you have done everything that I would hope for in a learner in the class, which is you've iterated, you've been thinking critically, you taught me new things, you taught me about Avid, and you taught me about the Cornell note taking, right?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll share, I guess, this is like my Google Drive for the class. And for all my other classes, I take Cornell style notes on paper, pen and paper. And so for playlist 1, this is kind of like what it would look like.
And can
Um,
you just talk folks through? Because I can tell you when I first heard this, I was really impressed. And then I was also kind of confused because I'd never heard the words Cornell notes. I
yeah.
Since you taught me, I was like, oh yeah, I know what that is, but like I've never heard it called that, right?
Okay, yeah. So Cornell notes is basically a style of note taking where you have a left column and a right column, and the left column has the big topics or big questions, and then the right column is where you answer or you delve deeper into those big topics or big questions. So usually what I have in the left column is the title of each like playlist video. So for the intro to MATLAB programming, there's like the getting started video, the default layout.
I wonder if you could
I,
show people what you mean by that. Could you actually go to our website
oh
and like
yeah.
just show them? Maybe you put like screen by screen right next to each other.
Okay. Um, do that with share screen. Can you still see my screen?
I can still, yeah, there it is. I see.
Okay, but it's not split screen.
It doesn't look like it's split screen at this moment.
Okay.
That's okay. We could just toggle back and forth between them if that sounds okay
Okay.
to you.
So we go
I
then.
love how you bookmark that, by the way. Is that would you recommend that?
I would recommend it. It's very nice and easy. I should have bookmarked this playlist, the PDF, but I was too lazy after I bookmarked it. Um, but I would recommend bookmarking it because I do go back to this all the time. So it might look a little different because it's the first time I'm taking notes for the class. But here we can see the first playlist is like the MATLAB desktop. And if we go back to my notes, okay, it looks like I started formatting the title the way I organize the columns and things later on. But since this is the very first notes I've taken for the class, it'll look a little bit different. So I'm gonna go to a later one. We'll go to playlist 5. And it's logical data. So I label it the name of, I guess, like the playlist. So we'll find the logical data here. So logical data is what this playlist is called, I guess. And then, so the first left-hand column item will be what is the logical data class? And so like, what is the logical data class? And then I watch the video, and while I'm watching the video, I take all of these notes. And then once that is done, I go to the next video, and the next video is what is a logical scalar? And it's what is a logical scalar? Watch it, take the notes. And then I did that for like the first 2 playlists. And for the very first playlist, it's not organized as nicely as playlist 5 because I wasn't taking notes in MATLAB at that time. I was only taking notes on paper. And I thought that was super weird because I didn't know how can you take notes on coding, something you do on a computer, on paper. And it was a little frustrating because I was like, I am not gonna forget everything. Like I'm not gonna remember how to do it. And I can't keep just like writing these arrows and like writing the commands and like keep doing all that. I can't keep doing that because I'm gonna get so confused. And so when I got to the script files, you learn about like LiveScripts. And when we had our group meetings, one of the group mates mentioned something about this like command K, or no, command some shortcut.
You got it, Command K. You got it. That's
I think command K is the link.
Insert a link.
Yeah, insert a link. We talked about that, but the one that I really liked was the command shift 4, and that I'll do it right now. Command shift 4, and that kind of allows you to take a screenshot of whatever you highlight. And I was like, when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I was like, I can like put pictures of my handwritten notes into MATLAB. So it's like, I have best of both worlds. I have like the coding and my handwritten notes right there. So I guess I'll show you what that kind of looks like in MATLAB. So this is the playlist 5. I have pulled up.
Can you kind of show how you would make that just for folks? Because I plan to show this video to future generations of students.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I love that I just want to say out loud is I define learning to be a process of changing your attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, and knowledge. And in this case, you're changing your behaviors. You're developing more and more sophisticated mechanisms by which you are encoding the information in the class in your own capture system and creating your own portfolio. And I love, one of the things that I look for in students to know that they're developing is that their later work is significantly different than the work than when they started the class. And I see that every time I see you present your portfolio to our small groups, I see further and further refinements and more sophistication that you're building in on a day-to-day basis. And I'm just so proud of that. And I just want to call that out and say thank you for your hard work and for your investment in your own learning. And also that's one of the things that I think is so important in a classroom, that the person that you are when you leave the class is significantly different, like the way that you actually study and the way that you think about it. And you've shown that in so many instances over the quarter, and we're actually seeing a live demonstration of it. But I just want to call it out and just kind of pay respect to it, and also kind of highlight you as a fantastic example of what this looks like for other students who are going to get into the class and be like, WTF, like this is crazy. What do I do? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Thank
so I don't know if you
you.
want to say a few words, but I'd love it when, maybe you want to respond to that. I want to create a chance for you to do that if you want to.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this class has definitely challenged me in the sense of adapting to new environments, because I haven't changed the way I take notes in a really long time. And I'm a very systematic person. Um, but I think you forcing me to, I mean, you never really forced me, but you presented opportunities for me to learn from others. And seeing the way other people take notes and seeing the way other people do things has opened my eyes to like how I can make my note taking better, because pen and paper isn't going to last me like 5 years, I'm pretty sure. Like I think I'm going to have to convert to digital pretty soon. um yeah, I definitely learned a lot, not just about MATLAB but about study skills and note taking and like uh like work habits. Yeah, I'm really thankful for you, Jeff.
Well, yeah, you're most welcome. You deserve every bit of that. And the reality is that you actually co-constructed that knowledge. It's one of the reasons that I like to decenter the teacher and center the students. And one thing that I get a lot is like, you let your students choose their own grade, your class must be really easy. But students that take my class seriously tell me often, this is one of the most challenging experiences I've ever had and heard of. And that's the irony of the freedom that my students get, is that it allows students to become free to be themselves and to focus on their curiosity and try new stuff and to really challenge themselves in ways that I can't do for you. And in fact, when there is a grade, that grade introduces fear into this equation that really limits your potential. And one thing that I was really proud of in the early stages of working with you, I think by the second meeting that we had, is I could see you letting go of that fear and really leaning into some of your own curiosity and really exploring things in ways that I had never seen in a graded class.
Yeah, I could feel that too. It was definitely, and like even with talking with you about, because I remember confiding in you how I don't really see applications for coding in my life because I want to be a physician and I never see doctors who code, and like, why would I ever need that? But you explained how sometimes skills outside of your area of expertise will make you a better, um, will make you better at whatever career choice you decide to follow. It'll make you better because you have skills that no one else has. And when you have those skills, you can solve problems in different ways. And that really inspired me to think about coding and maybe about other things, but coding, I don't know, it made me really excited. Like, oh, if I got really good at coding, I could do things that other people can't do. And that's kind of exciting.
It's so true. I have for future generations of students who are interested in this conversation, I think we went on for like 45 minutes to an hour that day, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, it was a long conversation. Yeah, but I was so excited. And as like a pre-med student, you always like are looking for opportunities to stand out. So it was definitely really impactful what you said.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you want to kind of show the process by which you create these, just so folks, because what I'm trying to do is get a little library of students that I look up to and have taught me a lot, but whose styles are significantly different, so that future generations of students can kind of see different styles and be like, oh, I like that one, or oh, I like this one. And so
Yeah.
just talk about the process by which, almost kind of highlight the notes, and then as you highlight them, maybe show us how you would make this from scratch. So maybe we'll start by highlighting what you're doing.
Highlighting what I do. Like going back here and
just like talk about like what we're looking at. What is this?
okay. So here's playlist 5. And that is the same. This is the same like handwritten notes that we were looking at previously. And I did the Command Shift 4, and I pasted all of the pictures after I had written the actual coding. So all of this is what is done in the videos. I do it along with Jeff, and he doesn't make all of these comments, but these comments are kind of my way of annotating what exactly is going on, because I tend to just forget like what these examples are, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, like despite having like kind of like definitions and logistical things up here, I don't really understand this example. So that's why I have a lot of comments in my code. And so yeah, I keep going, I keep writing handwritten notes at the same time I'm watching the videos, and at the same time I'm following along doing all of the coding. And so I do that for all the videos.
Can I just say something as you're doing this? This is lovely. I mean, I just like every time I see this, like when I grow up, I want to be like that. Well, my style's a little different than yours, but like you're just doing great work. And I just want to call out how important I think it is for myself that every line of code that I write in the videos that you're writing along for yourself, that habit is a really lovely habit. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you've noticed when you do that or what impact it has, but like for myself, I think that's super crucial. And I wonder how you feel about that habit for your own learning.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, as I mentioned before, the very first notes I like were handwritten, and I did the code along with Jeff, but I didn't save it. And doing the code, I think, is essential, because otherwise you're kind of just passively watching the videos, and you're really not going to remember what's happening after the video ends. So I think having that like muscle memory or just doing something will help you remember it, and then saving that work. I think that was like the real game changer for me, because it's like if I can go back and look at what I did, that's going to help me tenfold, because I'm not going to like relying on my own memory, my own muscle memory. It's not gonna do me justice, and it's not gonna help me learn. It's not gonna help me learn. Like I can learn if I can look back and relearn, basically. Yeah, so I definitely agree. Rewriting or redoing everything you do in the videos is essential.
Yeah, Eitan was talking about the other day how he's starting to break out of the mold. And so like he'll do stuff that I don't do. And that's, to me, that's always really exciting, because the moment you get in that space, you're literally creating your own knowledge and you're like following those pathways. And the necessary prerequisite for that stuff is to do what you're doing, which is the discipline to like write every single line and do the comments. And it's such a cool thing. You were going to keep going and keep showing us a little bit more. There were other features of your work that I thought were really cool. I don't know if you had one in mind. If you don't, I have like 30. So
yeah, I think kind of I use like the titles for the videos, and I have the images that I paste in after I complete all of the videos. But towards like the later playlist, I start utilizing like the other headings. And I think that it gives it another level of description that I think my brain needs when looking at these examples. Like,
you want to describe for our viewers what you mean by headings? Like where would you actually set that stuff, and what does that mean, and how does it work?
Yeah, so heading is basically what type of like font it is. So if I go up here, I see text. And I can change it to like title, which is like the orange that I see here. And I can change it to heading 1 or heading 2. And I didn't know that these could be used for the table of contents thing that you're talking about in the last meeting. And that's really cool.
I think I'm going to get Xuan Wei, the guy that taught me that, because like when I learned MATLAB, there was no such thing as a LiveScript. So my students I tell this all the time, like I am a learner just like your learners, and I'm actually learning from you right now, Sydney, just like I learned from every student in my class. And he taught me that, and I was like, that is freaking awesome. So I think I'm going to get him on camera in a different interview.
Okay, good. So I still don't know how to do it that well. Okay. But yeah, that's really cool. So that's like how I changed the headings. So my later playlists have like more headings like this before the examples, just kind of explain what topic the examples fall under, I guess. Yeah, and I just keep going, and sometimes the videos are just code. And I don't know if there's an example of that in this playlist, but sometimes I don't even have like pictures of my notes because most of the video was examples and like coding. So I'll just have the code and I'll just have a bunch of comments on them.
So I have two questions for you. How do you come up with that? Like, so how did you come up with matrix and or operator title? That's one question. And maybe you can respond to that. And then I have a second one to follow up on that.
Okay, so I come up with those titles just as I'm watching the video. I try to think, because sometimes you'll say logical vectors and okay, because usually we start with like scalar examples because they're the most basic. So it's just like one entry things, and then we apply the whatever operator we're learning to the scalar. And then we go on to more advanced examples like applying the operator we're learning to vectors. And so I kind of just separated that, and that's how I came up with the titles for each section.
Yeah. Okay. And then my follow-up question is, this is actually, I'm genuinely curious. Henry Fan, who's a great teacher of mine and a mentor, and also a previous student that I served, he taught me about timestamps on the YouTube videos. And I don't know, do you find those helpful at all? I wonder if that helps you navigate through. And no is a perfectly acceptable answer here. I'm not, the reason I ask this question is some of my students have found that they're able to peg their notes to the timestamps. And so they translate back and forth. And sometimes when I see your notes, I wonder if you're doing that. And if the answer is no, then no problem whatsoever. But I do wonder if you use that as a way to kind of guide your work.
Yeah, I don't do that because I don't do that. One, because I didn't know about that until this class and like hearing about it in one of the learning group discussions. And another, I think I've always like tried to make my notes like in like, for example, my OChem lecture, I try to make my notes so good that I don't need to refer back to whatever video that she showed me.
Awesome.
So I only refer back to my notes.
I love that practice. It's one of the things that I respect about you so deeply as a scholar. And I think it is a fantastic thing to develop if you can do it. Some students like that thing back. So I'm really proud of that. And one thing that I see when you speak, and I've seen it when you've done your presentations, and I've seen it as you've done your work throughout the quarter, is that you're constantly thinking about how you process the information and how you prefer to see it. And this is such a strength of an active mind and an engaged student, that you're filtering the classroom through your own needs, and you're thinking about the portfolio for your own purposes. It's not something that you're doing because I am telling you to do it. It's something that you're doing because you're genuinely wanting to capture the information for yourself.
Yeah, I think that this flipped learning style and this ungraded setup is so good for that. I feel like I always thought it was kind of like stubborn of me not to like adapt to like other teachers and like their ways of doing stuff, but because it is really important to know how you learn and what works for you, because everyone is so different and one way isn't going to do it for everyone. So you really have to explore how you learn and what works best for you.
I feel honored to be of service of you and to see you shine. And I think it's this is one of the reasons I wanted to get you on camera, because I feel so blessed as a teacher. I get to work with my students who are very hard workers and engaged for 10, 11, 12 weeks, 12 weeks normally, right? And then I get to see all these beautiful things, and then no other future generation of students gets to see them, right? And so it's just kind of lost in the wind. And I hope that my future generations are as inspired by what I've seen when they see your work and they hear your voice. I guess I don't know if you could like just do a quick little introduction to like how you would set up this process. So like, what buttons do you click? And how do you think about that initial stage, just so folks can get a concrete idea of how they might copy your style if they wanted. We call this the Sydney style, right?
So I just go to add new and I do LiveScript. Okay, so then you get a new script and it'll usually start with code. So it starts with code, and to change it to text, you just go up here, you click text instead of code. And I want to make a title. I'll title it example notes. And then you see the star, and the star means that it's not saved yet. So you click save. Click save. And then I just change it to the title of, usually I change it to the title of like the playlist. So like if it was logical play, I would change it to logical play. Actually, no, that's a lie. I wish I did that. At first I started labeling the playlist like playlist 1 notes, playlist 2. And because I like everything consistent, I never changed it. And so I continue to do playlist 1 notes. That's why up here it's playlist 5 notes, playlist 7 notes. But I wish I named it the title of each playlist. So this is example notes. And then I just save it to, I'm not the most techie person. So if I'm being completely honest, all of my folders and all of like my MATLAB stuff is kind of messy. But I usually just save it under Cindy Tomaneng files. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And then to go back to code, so I have the example notes, and then usually I assume like I'm gonna code. That's the main reason why I have this LiveScript, is to record the code that I do along with Jeff. And then I do the code, and then I just I don't know, I'll just make a short little x is equal to 9. And then I usually use the percent shortcut to make another section. And then
Can you tell me why you usually use sections? I think I know why, but it would be nice to audible that to the future generations.
yeah, I make another section well, whenever there's like a new problem, kind of like a new example. And then I also make another section if we're moving on to another video, obviously. And so if this was like we're moving on to another video situation, I would just go back to text, and then I would go to the title, and it would be like video 2, and like that would be the next section of my notes. And then when I complete all the videos, I go back to, or I scan my notes, the handwritten notes, and then I upload it to my drive. And then I do the whole screenshot, and then I copy and paste into the notes on MATLAB.
Awesome. And I think the way you copy and paste is you go up to the insert tab on the top. It's hard to see it because the screen that we're doing is kind of small because of Zoom. Yeah, there you go. Insert and then image, is it?
Image. Yeah, I usually actually I just I've never done it that way. I usually just when you
Command Shift 4.
Yeah, let me see if I can share my whole like desktop screen. When you do the Command Shift 4, you get the section, and then it pops up here at the bottom right. And I just, I guess, we right click on my mouse, and then I say save to clipboard. And then I go back to my MATLAB, and I just Command V, which is like paste, Command V, and it just shows up. And that's how I usually insert my notes, my handwritten notes, into my MATLAB notes.
Thank you so much for this demonstration. I think you're doing fantastic work. I'm really proud of that. I'm hoping that your work will be inspiring to others. I would ask for maybe a final comment just about kind of, very often students find themselves disarmed because it's a flipped classroom. It's social community-based learning where we're like grouped together. It's ungraded. It's Jeff is hardly talking other than that little introduction at the beginning, right? And I wonder if you can just give some words of wisdom or some coaching or some encouragement for folks on what that experience was like for you and what you've learned from that. Like, what are some of the things that you take away from the experiences that you've had so far?
The main piece of advice I would give to beginning students would just be to trust the process and challenge yourself, because it seems really daunting, but if you set realistic goals for yourself and you do what Jeff tells you to do, but like he gives you so much freedom, and I know that's daunting, but just try your best, and I promise that you'll find the groove like throughout the quarter. um I wish I found the groove like earlier in the quarter, because like coming towards the end of the quarter, it's really hard to complete videos or playlists, and like you learn about the cool other projects or other applications of coding, and I kind of wanted to explore that more. So if I completed the videos before, it would have been a lot easier. So I think challenge yourself and really commit. I definitely didn't do that, and I say learn from my mistakes. Um, I prioritize a lot of my other classes just because they're so rigorous and had deadlines, and I would have been punished if I didn't meet those deadlines. So
Yeah, I want to challenge the idea. One of the the punishment, I think, is what I want to focus on. I have heard many people say that the work that I do is not rigorous, and yet you just said you have an intellectual desire to go deeper into this material, which is not always true in graded classrooms, right? And in fact, I have ample evidence that my students in ungraded scenarios go much more deep than any graded class that I've ever taught. And in fact, I always challenge people who try to undermine my choices in my grading, define rigor, because I have an academic definition for what learning means, and I have an academic definition for what I expect of rigor. And much of that includes the motivations, curiosities, and soul of my students. And I can see that in your words. And so I just want to like be a little bit careful in the sense that sometimes when people hear about these kinds of experiences, they think it's non-rigorous, and I would challenge that. But I do agree with you that I give a lot of freedom to you to be able to make those decisions for yourself. And I'm really proud that you made the mistakes that you made this quarter, because I think without those, that's really where magic happens, where you make a mistake and realize how to fix it. I also think that you would do fantastic work with some of the projects that we're working on. And so I just want to invite you, hopefully, to find opportunities to continue your learning in MATLAB after this course is over. There's no requirement, of course, but I genuinely believe that you have so many things to offer our world. And I think you can do some really innovative work in spaces that most people would never imagine that work be done, which is an MD that's able to code and solve problems in ways that most MDs are not trained to do, right? And then I do want to highlight what you were saying, because I do think that's true, that so often the punishment feature of grades can be debilitating and it can overwhelm the mind. And I do want to center that. I want to get back to your voice, because I think your experience is so valuable for future students, which is in an ungraded classroom, it's easy to convince yourself that what matters most is those deadlines imposed by other instructors. And I think what you're reflecting on right now is what ends up happening is you actually undercut yourself in that case, right?
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, it's not like sure, completing homework assignments or studying for tests, like it's interesting, like I can see applications, but it's like I'm so pressured to get this information in my brain just to like barf it all up for the tests, and then I can just like move on. That's more of what I'm interested in than the actual content. And so I think not having a deadline for MATLAB, it made me think deeply about how I can find applications for this in my life, and like made me question, like, if I'm not doing this for a requirement, if I were not doing this for a requirement, like why would I be doing this? And like how couldn't this be useful to me? And how, yeah, just really how it applies to life, because a lot of classes don't touch on that much.
Well, I would say if you think about rigor, that is a very rigorous experience.
Yeah. When I said rigor previously,
This don't blame yourself. This is a dominant narrative. Many scientists who are novice teachers, who are not trained as teachers and have not thought about teaching, but they're in very fancy positions at powerful universities, think that they own that word, and they define that word to be in psychologically and emotionally abusive teaching relationships. If students aren't feeling pain, then it's non-rigorous. And I fundamentally disagree with that. And I think we would do well in college education to challenge that. And I have seen you do that, Sydney. I see you do that in this conversation. I've seen you do it in the classroom, and I'm so proud of it. And I think your wisdom and the words that you're sharing can be quite helpful for future generations as they struggle with the real frontal assault that I am pushing on the assumption that the best way to motivate the student is to put the grade to their head and say, do it or else, right? And I think it's so powerful when we allow the students to remove that and actually go to the space of self-discovery and say, why am I doing this? And how does this relate to my life? Because it ends up that many students are very, very intelligent, just like you. And by the end of the quarter, in the absence of that pressure, not only have they done all of the work that they would have done otherwise, but they've done it for themselves. And it ends up that hunger, you said it earlier, I can't believe we got this on film. It's such golden stuff. You're like, I actually want to do how often do you finish a class and you think to yourself, like, I wish I could do more of this?
Yeah, it's weird. Like even the Lana project, I was so lost and I didn't understand it, but it kind of made me want to know what the heck it was, which I hate because I have a hate love relationship with coding because it's like I'm super new to it, so it's so frustrating and I don't like learning it, but it's cool.
I want to end here because I know you have an appointment to go to, and I just feel so blessed to catch you. And I want to say thank you for all you've done, and I so respect the process that you've gone through. And I can't wait for future generations to hear your voice and to hear your story. I think it will mean a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for. I'm honored that you chose me to be interviewed.